Part 3. Similarities between PCP and ketamine use and schizophrenia.
There seems to be an interesting similarity between the effects of PCP ketamine and the symptoms of schizophrenia. For example, they both have symptoms that deal with psychosis and behavioral inhibition. They both have positive symptoms, such as hallucinations or a euphoric effect, and they both have negative symptoms, such as social withdrawal. Schizophrenia comes in a variety of forms and includes symptoms that differ vastly from each other. These include, but are not limited to, an outward lack of emotional expression, thought processes that do not necessarily follow normal patterns, delusions and hallucinations that indicate a lack of connection with reality, and a distortion of the body leading to bizarre positions and actions. Since it presents itself in so many different forms, it is a hard disorder to understand. According to the DSM-4, a patient must be present with at least 2 of the following symptoms for an extended period of time over 1 month: delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, catatonic behavior, or negative symptoms such as affective flattering, alogia, or avolition. These symptoms imply that schizophrenia is perhaps one of the most severe of the psychopathologies and is a very serious disorder. For what reasons would someone be willing to try to inflict these symptoms upon themselves? What if there was a way to induce the symptoms of schizophrenia without actually having the disorder? It is hypothesized that there is indeed a way to get schizophrenia symptoms. Taking phencyclidine, also known as PCP, and ketamine are commonly used recreational drugs whose effects are remarkably similar to the symptoms of schizophrenia.
Excuse me, Dr. Dunn. How does PCP work in the brain?
Well, what a mighty fine question. PCP in the brain acts primarily upon NMDA receptors, which are located primarily in the cerebral cortex and the hippocampus. Now, the NMDA receptor is unique in that it requires 2 receptors to be occupied in order for the receptor channel to open and for the ions to move through. One is occupied by glutamate, the other is occupied by glycine. Now, PCP, when it is active in the body system, occupies the glycine receptor, thereby preventing the channel from opening. Now, this is how it has the sort of depressing effects that it has upon the body and the brain. The behavioral and cognitive effects are derived from this because if the channel doesn't open, NMDA, of course, is an excitatory sort of working in the neural system. Now, because the glutamate attaches, the brain detects that, hey, nothing's happening. So I'm going to stick up more glutamate to make things happen better. And so as a result of this, the glutamate starts attaching to other receptors and produces more cognitive and behavioral effects.
PCP, according to one study, may cause pathomorphological changes when administered and may be even more harmful than previously thought. Experiments were performed to test if PCP may have medicinal purposes of psychological disorders. It turns out that symptoms very similar to schizophrenia show up when PCP is used in the human. It also shows that specific neurons in the cingulate and retrosplenial cortices are selectively vulnerable to an apparent neurotoxic action of PCP usage. The effects of PCP that are similar to schizophrenia may have to do with those neurons. Schizophrenics are often not affected by pain in the same way that other people are, being quite unresponsive to pain. A major function of the cingulate cortical neurons is to control pain responses, and drugs such as PCP and ketamine are very effective at depressing pain. In a separate study, it was found that cingulate neurons normally mediate effective responses to pain, and this explains why schizophrenics are often hyporesponsive, meaning less responsive to pain.
A study was done involving vervet monkeys that have been treated with PCP to see the cognitive results. Monkeys were used because schizophrenia symptoms can occur in humans over repeated use of PCP. In a study involving the vervet monkeys, 15 monkeys were treated with PCP and 15 were not treated so they could be controls. A week later, each monkey was presented with a transparent cube that contained a slice of banana and was open on one side. They all succeeded as long as the opening of the cube faced them, but when the cube was rotated, the PCP-treated monkeys couldn't figure out how to get the banana out because their prefrontal cortex was injured by the PCP. The PCP-treated monkeys had lower levels of dopamine usage in 2 sections of the brain. the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and the prelimbic cortex. The dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is responsible for working memory, which may inhibit the monkey's ability to remember which side of the cube they tried. The other part of the brain is the prelimbic cortex. This part of the brain is thought to control behavioral inhibition, similar to behavioral inhibition that can sometimes be seen in schizophrenia. Both of these brain functions are necessary in order for the monkey to figure out how to get the banana out of the cube. Jensch said, "There's a direct and significant relationship in the degree of inhibition of dopamine usage and the degree of cognitive impairment." In schizophrenia patients, levels of DA are actually lowered in some parts of the brain and raised in others. Schizophrenia patients have lower levels of dopamine in their prefrontal cortex, thus causing behavioral inhibition. This datum is supported by the monkey tests. They found that the more severe cognitive deficits, the bigger changes in dopamine in the prefrontal cortex of the monkey's brains. This can be connected to schizophrenia because dopamine is a neurotransmitter involved in schizophrenia. This could be used to help clarify why cognitive problems arise in schizophrenia patients and possible therapies for improving cognitive function. Clozapine is a drug that was used to help the PCP-treated monkeys. Once they were treated with clozapine, the monkeys were able to figure out how to get the banana out of the cube. Does this mean that clozapine could be used to help schizophrenia patients? Only time will tell.